International Media TV. Television that listens to you.
Hi, I'm Johnnie Burrell. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir, and Madam Supervisor. We applaud and thank you for your stewardship. And I wish to say that as pastor of Third Baptist Church and as president of the NAACP, we would like to appeal to you respectfully so, that we be driven by the moral imperative. And that moral imperative is, we know who the people are, who've been underserved, who've been denied, who've been looked over, that we need to be very careful and cautious about making sure that at the end of the day, we will have done something that will say, San Francisco is deserving of bearing the name of St. Francis. Kierkegaard said, purity of heart is to will one thing. And the one thing that we ought to be willing, if you please, regarding all this process, is that we have enough integrity, a sense of rightness, and justice to make sure that the people who were wronged in this community see things being made right. We stand on that. We're going to pray on it. We're going to shout on it. We're going to demonstrate on it, because this is the only way that we can say that justice has been served.
My name is Fred Jordan, and I'm president of the San Francisco African American Chamber of Commerce. A couple of points I want to make right up front. I cannot express the extreme disappointment of this whole process that you speak of. I know what an RFP is. I've had about 400 or 500 of those. An RFP means, to me, that you will take this project out of black hands and put it out to the whole country. And there's no way that our developers can compete. There's no way. I mean, you can have selection boards and all that. Like I said, I've been before about 300 or 400 of them. What I'm saying is that I don't think you ever really gave us a chance to come around and for the community to get behind an African American developer who is financially capable to submit on this project. I mean, I think that he's almost been ignored. And all I'm saying is that this is our last little bit of culture in this city. And I just think that you're taking the last of anything that we have. And I'm just so disappointed. We really should give the black community a chance to keep this project. And if you put out an RFP, you've given it away. That's it.
First of all, I want to give honor to Queen Bee, Lyndon Breed, our president of the board of supervisors, the most powerful African-American black and Negro woman in San Francisco. If something would ever happen to Ed Lee, which we don't want to happen, she would be our next mayor. So let's give her a nice round of applause. She worked hard for that. Now, after saying all that, my name is Ace, and I'm on this case. So I'm going to speak what's on my heart and my mind, because I have no fear. I want you to hear what comes and goes into your ear. We are in a crucial state of emergency. Us African American, black, Negroes, however you want to call us. We are in a state of emergency. And this guy named Ed Lee, that knows me for over 20-some years, anybody knows that he had his campaign office just a block away, but he tiptoed out of there when I went down to City Hall and told he was there. So what was he doing in our community back 5 years ago? He went to Rosales, they closed. He went on the street, Chicago's, they closed. He went down to YOSHI'S, they closed. Everywhere he went, black businesses closed, but yet, just at the last board of supervisors said, Black Lives Matter. Well, damn it, I called him as he got out. Had my camera and I'm going to show them. I said, if you say Black Lives Matter, why Red and Brown and the black leadership couldn't go in your office a week ago? Why last week you had HUD in my community? So let's leave that alone. We know Ed Lee's going to be the next mayor, but he knows me. Hey, well, we all know the city will not go on without Ed Lee, so let's all be quite clear. He's going to be the next mayor, so we got to get on it. Okay, anyway, so what I'm here to say is that I'm like the past speakers. We done been through all these processes. My name is Ace, and what's going to replace Ace is CASE, Community Assistance Service Enterprise Organization. Now, I've been here through all these processes. I've been through them for 20 years. I'm going to be watching over this time, because some of the same faces and places cannot participate because it's conflict of interest. I'm here to recognize and identify. So I don't want no parts of what y'all handed down. So I'm definitely going to be on the part that simulates this information to the community and make sure that it don't happen like it did last time. See, but the thing about it, we got these same players that's involved. So we might have to eliminate or even go to the city attorney and say, is there conflict of interest? They might recuse themselves and have a whole new community. We're going to select the committee. We're going to select who goes on it. And like the gentleman said, we should be the stewards and the deciding of what happens to our community. You know, spent over $18 million of our money that we don't know where it went. Some of these same people that's going to be coming up here that received. You got people that got business, opening up business across the street from a failed business. So three principles on close. I'm not going to tolerate misguided leadership, failed efforts, and the most egregious violation that I'm not going to tolerate is undermining our community. Thank you very much.
I heard about this meeting by the way, my name is Wilfred Ossery. I've been a long-time resident of the West End Addition. And I say as immodestly as I can, I think I've had experience in my lifetime that can be used in addressing what we're all here to talk about. I have participated in the organizing of community corporations that represented communities. I've done it in New York City with the Harlem Commonwealth Council, which is the largest black community-owned capital instrument in this country right now. That was done in the 60s, the late 60s, and also the Huff Development Corporation in Cleveland. The notion of why those kinds of instruments are important is that although we live in a capitalist society, the black community is limited in its ability to pull enough capital together on various projects of this kind to really come forward with proposals that make sense to the people, the other partners that take part in the putting together the instruments that work. What I want to try and do as briefly and as quickly as I can is describe a notion that I wanted to describe to the young man that was in charge of working on the exodus of blacks from San Francisco, and I went to his office 2 or 3 times, couldn't reach him, couldn't even get a call back to discuss it. So I'm really trying to put something together in my mind now that I thought very clearly about then and less clearly about right now. But the notion is this: what the black community needs to save YOSHI'S is an instrument, a corporate instrument, community corporation, that has the respect of our community to function as a partner with the city and county of San Francisco. If we structured such an instrument to participate in the capital problems that are associated with saving YOSHI'S, we could in fact approach the city of San Francisco on the notion of the city owning the instrument in a joint venture with that corporation. If in fact the city entered into a joint venture with that kind of instrument, it could be a JV that we would buy the city out over a period of time. Any way we struck such a joint venture with the city, with that kind of corporation, we can also count, I think, on a certain amount of support from the foundation community in the city. That would become a third party to what we're trying to do. And finally, I think we would then be in a position to confront the artist community in this country that performs in centers like this, to be a party to saving YOSHI'S as well. It is almost criminal that the entertainment community in this country that performs in YOSHI'S rarely owns any part of the venues in which they perform. We ought to confront that community with an opportunity to participate in a capital venture with the Black Community Instrument, the City of Oakland, the City of San Francisco, the foundation community of San Francisco, to become a party to that, to raise whatever capital is necessary to address the capital needs of saving YOSHI'S, and also find out how we do the RFQ for someone that we brought in to manage the operation. I won't go any further on it, but at the core of what I'm talking about is the absence in our community of an instrument that has our respect and ability to approach the city of San Francisco to become our partner on putting an instrument together that helps us on not being forced out of the city. And this being one of the things that we start with as a project for that activity. Thank you.
Thank you, President Reed and Joaquin, for hosting us again today. My name is Todd Clater. I have been involved in planning and development here in the Western Addition for a majority of my career. I just want to amplify what Mr. Usry said from the standpoint of the economic expectations of this RFP, RFQ process. It is often said the devil's in the details, and Mr. Usry alluded to basically a structured financial transaction that means there's going to need to be time devoted to a program for the reuse of the space that demonstrates that it can work, but the opportunity can be framed in a multitude of ways. But to just put it in extremes, one would be somebody come to the table with a pocket full of cash and say, this is my proposal with this program, and here's what I'm willing to pay for it. Then there's the other extreme, which says, I want to demonstrate the viability of my program, but I don't have the money to put into literally purchasing the property day one. And so it's unclear to me what approach you all are contemplating, because that indeed will inform us of how viable the opportunity is for a community investment approach versus, the property goes to the highest bidder. So that is a, compelling concern for purposes of, appreciating how we can have a community stake in this as an investment.
Okay, I'm Jacques Talafero with YOSHI'S Digital Media, and I have a real interest in whatever Yoshi's going to be called as a entertainer and promoter. And thank you for almost clearing that up of who owns Yoshi's, because that is really something that is, prime time as far as we go forward. I'm just going to, Ed Lee, when I met him, he was the city manager. And I met him when he was doing investigation of the corporations here in San Francisco that had benefited from slavery. And he actually completed that report. So he knows in that report exactly what companies, and there's quite a few of them, in the billions of dollars that benefited from slavery, and they need to pay reparations. So that's not really why I got up here. I got up here to talk about Yoshi's, and that someone from Super Bowl 50, we've been looking to do something with Super Bowl 50, called the City Hall, he called City Hall, and City Hall told him that they would not open Yoshi's for a special event because it was too expensive. Now, I'm getting this secondhand, so I would really like to hear from you. But as far as programming in Yoshi's, that we could be doing things right now. I mean, right here, we have Bobby Ware. Okay, I'm probably going to forget somebody. We have Barry Dow. We have the Archbishop. Okay, we could have done an opening for straight out of Compton. We could have got Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, had the whole shebang. And now Miles Ahead is coming out. There's no way that we shouldn't have a premiere of Miles Ahead when he went up and down these streets on Fillmore, and the movie is coming out. This is something that the Archbishop could, because he did play, he played with John Coltrane, right? Miles Davis, he never played with John Coltrane? Okay, well, anyway, we could be doing these premieres right now, and there's no reason that Yoshi's shouldn't be open. I mean, really, we could be doing some very, very high-level profile things that will bring money. Also, there's a big tech convention going on right now. I was just down there at Oracle. They are always spending big-time money on entertainment. It wouldn't be that much to lure them up here. And the last thing I was going to say, as Yoshi's opens, we don't want that to become another Apollo or anything like that. I think that's already been said. But for that to happen, we really need to address some of these quasi-laws that are in place that have businesses taking our black art and not letting us use our black artists. I think the gentleman referred to that. This is a serious business in the entertainment business. It's a serious business about black people being able to actually own and promote their own art, as well as other people. So that's a serious issue that needs to be addressed too as we open Yoshi's.
What would be a good starting point is to open up the screening room. We had the screening room open, operating, which is the Fillmore Bay Area Media Group, and we were like a startup. You know, we were just getting ready to, we had just broadcasted our first program over the internet, and by now we could have been on Facebook. You know, so I think you should look at opening up the screening room because there's no elevator involved, and you go inside. When you go inside, just walk to the back, and there's a bathroom right there. And we were operating really, we were producing programs and really making it work. You know, people's lives had changed around. People's lives had changed around once they got involved in television production. So I think that could be a starting point because it's a separate entity in there. It's not even, well, you know where the screening room is. So, and then what I'd like for you to think about is what has happened to this community. I mean, what happened? I mean, this was the Harlem of the West. I mean, and now look, what was, we got two or three buildings left, you know, so it should be earmarked for the black community, the residents of Fillmore, to have in the whole. Then you'll see the change in the people, the change in the area. You know, as Willie Brown said, the building was making $11 million a year. So now, as he said, so there was some funny stuff going on with the money, you know. So I think you really should look at what has happened to the community and to open it up to only residents, proposals coming out of the Fillmore area.
My name is Amy Fairweiss, and it was about 6 or 7 years ago that I think it might have been in this room that Miss Adrian and the Village Project puts on their annual Kwanzaa event. And there's some really amazing principles that are involved with Kwanzaa. I made a little cheat sheet because I can't remember the names on my own, but Ujima is collective work and responsibility, and Ujamaa is cooperative economics. And I think that spirit should really guide us forward with what happens with this space. And I just want to say that when there's a will, there's a way. When there's political will from Ed Lee or Supervisor Breed to get this place open in an interim way, it can happen. If Ed Lee were to call up Governor Brown and say, do you want to come down here and visit the Fillmore and talk about the redevelopment and the kind of damage that it did to the African American community, and this is an anchor for the African American community, and we need to own it as a city so that we can do something positive, because there's a crisis because the African American population has gone down to under 5% of the city, and right now 50% of the arrests in this city are of the African American community. There needs to be daytime usage to support the youth of this community, and there needs to be collaborative use from around the city with African American leadership to be able to have this be an arts hub. And you know, I have some experience with this myself because I was working for 4 years to try to get the Harding Theater revitalized on Divisadero. And there were a few different organizations that tried to come together to put a $4 million offer on that place. And unfortunately, the property owner kept it off the market and kept it blighted for years, and now is letting it be sold and leased to somebody from Chicago. And we can't have that happen. We have to make sure that this is a resource for the African American community, and it's political will. And I just want to say, and I hold you somewhat accountable for this too, Supervisor Breed and Ed Lee, when Marcus Books was in danger, all they needed was $1 million loan, a loan. And Ed Lee did not lift a finger to help to get that loan. And so we lost the oldest African American bookstore, and now it's a nail shop or something like that, and it could have been housing for African Americans in this community. So I just want to say, it's political will. And I happen to be running for mayor of San Francisco, so Ace, if you're on the case, you probably know that. But please talk to me, because I think this is really about getting the political will of the people, because Ed Lee just hasn't cut it.
Good evening, and thank you, Supervisor Breed and Joaquin and city staff for providing this opportunity for us to speak. I think everyone here is united in the desire to have a vibrant and viable space next door. I'd like to introduce myself and explain who I am and explain who we are so that people in the community know who we are. My name is Wendy Proctor. My husband and I have lived in San Francisco for 35 and 26 years respectively. My husband and I are owners of a condo in the Fillmore Heritage Center next door. We've lived there for 6.5 years. We've been part of the San Francisco landscape in our own small ways. I'm an architect. I've worked on public projects my entire life. I worked on the John O'Connell High School, which brings vocational skills to youth in the mission. I've preserved several significant historic buildings in the city. My husband is a jazz musician. He came to San Francisco with his band in the 1980s when the city was a draw for artists. His band evolved into a sound business, and 30 years later, my brother-in-law and he are still operating their small business in San Francisco. They've built music studios where artists can play music. They've designed and installed sound systems throughout the San Francisco area, including YOSHI'S, San Francisco. I have two sisters. They both live in San Francisco for as long or longer than I have. They both work for the school system. They're a teacher and an assistant teacher. I have 4 nieces and nephews who have all been born and raised in San Francisco and went through the public school system. So my whole family lives here. I live here. I live next door. When my husband and I were able to purchase our first home in 2009, we felt that a home in the music corridor was a good fit for us. My husband worked on the project. Sheba's Lounge was a clincher for us. It's a wonderful music venue. We were jazzed to live in a building that had a world-class club. We also felt that you could enjoy great music at actually some affordable prices. They had Hawaiian music for $15 on Sundays. But it was just an elevator ride away. So ultimately, we supported the development in the biggest way you can. We bought a home in it. So to quote a corny quote, if you build it, they will come. So here we are. We have some contingency here. So the breakdown of the demographic of our building, the 80 units, just to be clear, because I think there's some confusion out there, is that we have 15%, 12 units that are affordable housing. We have 73% of the units, 57 of them, are owner-occupied. Only 28%, 23 are rentals. And the Homeowners Association enforces a 30-day minimum stay, so we're not contributing to the Airbnb crisis. 76%, or 61 of the units, are still original owners that have lived there for 7 to 8 years through.
I need to make sure that we're moving on. If you want to submit that, we can make sure it's included for us to read.
I'll be brief, but I feel like we need to be heard. So I want to express that we are regular folks. We're teachers, bus drivers, administrative staff, medical professionals, nurses, small business owners. We're not the crisis that's going on in the mission. We support local businesses. If you slice through us, we are San Francisco too. So ultimately, I'll jump to what's important to us in our community. So we are here, we own here, we're not going to be going anywhere. So it's important for us to be able to speak to the characteristics that are important. So a vibrant business that can provide world-class music.
I'm going to need to move on to the next speaker now. Who's waiting for you? Just because everyone's going to give it about 3 minutes.
Okay. Just one more point, and that'll be done. So just one thing that's paramount to me is part of this RFP is that it be a viable business that can comply with building permits, entertainment permits, health department permits, and maintain the life safety system, just to name a few, as co-owners of the building.
My comments are short. My name is Kim Schmidt. My husband and I reside at 1310 Fillmore Street, number 708. We bought in. What I would like to ask is that I noticed that there are only 9 seats on the committee to select the new user of the space, commercial space. I would like to add 2 more seats to that committee for people representing the residents of that building, of the 80 units. Thank you.
Thank you.
Each time I try not to say anything, but you know me. One of the things that I wanted to also weigh in on is the interim use of that building. Thank you for so graciously mentioning Kwanzaa, but we need venues in this community, so I want to put my little 2 cents worth in that during the interim of your timeline, that building, and especially the community part, correct the lobby, the screening room, those areas, the gallery, those areas were always a part of the community. And so I'm just hoping that during the interim of, as we get the request for proposals and all of that going, that we'll be allowed to use that building. I have a couple of events. I do events in this community, successful events in this community. And so it's very important to me that we have access to the community part. That lobby, the correct lobby, is a community. Yes, yes. So that's my little 2 cents worth.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to first of all say my name is Barry Dow. I have an organization called Access Advocates. I'm a member of several of the black organizations in San Francisco, and I commend you, Supervisor Breed, for championing this effort to keep this venue in our community. I want to reiterate a few things that Reverend Brown and Fred Jordan and Jock Talafaro and a few other people have said. I feel it is imperative that we keep this in our community. Myself, I'm a native of San Francisco, so I have been here on the streets. I'm also an entertainer and an educator. Many of you may not remember, and some may, but I was like the host and one of the co-founders of New World music videos back in the 80s and 90s. And I've been a musician performing around the Bay Area and all of, and I've also been an educator. So I taught with the San Francisco Unified Schools. The reason I'm saying all of this is because I feel that it is imperative that we keep this in our community and have this benefit not only the people who are the grassroots organizations, but also the people who are trying to create something for our children, the little children that we do have left in San Francisco. So I really feel that what I suggest you should do maybe is, besides having a selection committee of 9, maybe have a committee of community advocates who can help create and make sure that you get what they want, instead of a large group, but maybe nine selective community and mayor, governmental officials to kind of build, get some of the efforts from what grassroots and also government.
Great. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm glad that the economic development came in the picture, because I think that's one of the things that we're lacking in this community is ownership. There's been many things open, but we haven't had actually ownership of many venues. Sullivan was, I think, the only one that actually had the venue of the Fillmore, and then that changed. We have the West Bay local community developers. We don't know who they are, right here in this building and for this venue. So we have many venues that we can use and own as a cooperative. As I studied the government, they're looking to open up more cooperative businesses. So we can open up a community cooperative, that way it stays in the community as ownership. But we need to come to the table and figure out what the venues are in our community already and how we can go about using those to look at who is the West Bay Development Corporation. How are they owning this building and operating? And can we use the model that they have and take it over to YOSHI'S? But let's get an understanding of the corporations in our neighborhood. As the gentleman said, let's look at some corporation models and take it over to YOSHI'S and see if we can build something. Like I said, one thing I did study, though, is the government is of California looking for more cooperatives. That's the only way that we're going to get that building and stay in ownership over time. Now, we talk about affordable housing. We talk about the displacement, but we don't never talk about the displaced African-American businesses. So if we bring back some of those people that have certificate of preference on the economic development level, those that were displaced from businesses, will they get a preference on being part of this corporation first and owning a part of that. Let's take the economic part of the displacement now. Since we've done a lot on the housing, let's take the economic development part of those that lost their businesses.
Hello, yes, my name is Sick Y. I'm an entertainer. I was born and raised in the Fillmore district, and over the years, I've watched this neighborhood change from a predominantly black community to, you can call it diverse, but it's not really diverse as you would want to say. And what I want to ask for, you know, I speak for the young cats that can't come up in here and speak to y'all, you know. I want to have more transparency with the mayor's office, the redevelopment agency, with everybody in layman's term, you know, more accessibility for the community, you know, because like you said, the mayor's office, they own it, they own a subsidiary of what owns the property. You know, that's like sending the community in a circle when we're trying to find transparency and simple questions like, who owns this? What can we do with it? Why can't we just get that? You know, that's something real simple that shouldn't be like closed doors, hidden mazes for the people that have to go through and find it, you know what I'm saying? And in San Francisco, we have a Chinatown, we have a Japantown, we have the Mission for the Latinos and everything, but you renamed this the Jazz District, you know, and for all the African American communities, the little strongholds that we do have left, they name them troubled communities. Why can't we have an Afro-American community? Why do we have to come to community meetings to try to hold on to one building? You know, that's crazy. We should be trying to encompass a whole neighborhood, not just one building. You know, I just think we need more transparency. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Torres, Director. Mr. Torres, you probably know what I want to say, but let me say this. I think we need to talk about the factual, truthful kind of things. I wish the supervisor were here because nobody is saying that this group here, this community group, none of us, nobody is saying that we're not going to pay the $5 million hard money. That's not the case. Whoever comes in, and let me just, on behalf of this group, let me say, what this community wants is an opportunity. And they are not asking a free lunch either. They're saying, give us an opportunity, so let's figure out how we can acquire something of an economic asset and a cultural significance for this community on our own. This building was built in the investment for it started in early 1990s by the mayor Frank Jordan for one reason, to create African American economic empowerment. That's why it was created. African American economic empowerment. We don't need to be ashamed of stating this fact. Every community tries to protect itself. If it was in the Hispanic community, the Hispanic person would say, I want to protect this because it was meant for me. If it was a Chinese community, legitimately would say that. If it was a gay community, everybody have a right for that. Now, certain things are misleading. One of the things that are misleading is the role of the state. The state representatives work for us too. You don't need to talk on our behalf to them. We, the community, needs to talk to our state assembly, our state senators, and say, hey, do you mind working with us because we want to preserve this facility? And not for free either. Secondly, this community did not create this problem. This community has nothing to do with creating the YOSHI'S problem. The problem is created because somebody made a wrong decision of forgiving $5 million loan. And the guy basically said, if that's the deal, I'm going to give you the key and walk out. Now, this would come out through either litigation or in a normal conversation where we say, was there a mistake made? If it was a mistake, do we weigh the community's interest? The problem with this request that you have, the request for proposal, is inherently guarantees that no black person in the entire nation have any chance of winning this. Because the reality and the historic reality of our economic condition is such that there is no way that we can be able to compete with Bank of China or the largest bank in this world. There's no way, because today, a 50,000 square footage space, forget the 50,000 square footage real estate space. You go and look at the real estate in the city. They all are overbidden by $1 million over asking price. So you are, by unconsciously, subconsciously, by not knowing, you're making sure that the black community does not have any chance of controlling their destiny as far as the last opportunity they have of this facility. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Sean Richard. I'm the executive director of an organization called Brothers Against Guns. I'm born and raised in the Western Addition. I'm born and raised in San Francisco. I lost 2 brothers in the Western Addition, on Webster and Grove and Eddie and Divisadero. I want to talk to you guys about the managing part. We have an outline and we have a full business plan, and we have $1 million of our own money. As supervisor says, she don't want to invest any money. We have a signed intent letter to take over YOSHI'S right now as a management partner with my LLC group that we have. So I just want to see where we at far as with the proposal that's being presented. We have a lot of people that come up here and talk. A lot of people that want to say things and do things, but we have action right now on the table that we're ready to present to the city. Somebody that's from the Western Addition, born and raised, African American, and that's willing to work with the community 100%. So my question is to you two up there, because the supervisor just left, where are we at right now as far as proposal and someone coming in with their own money to partner with the city to help run this YOSHI'S across the street?
So just to go back to the, thank you, just to go back to the timeline. So we're still working out conversations with the state about what we're going to be able to do moving forward. And we're hoping that we'll be able to take that next step as early as next month, meaning next week is the beginning of next month, at the latest in December. So we're going through that process right now. Have you signed up for the newsletter?
The one that's going around?
Yeah.
Yes, I just signed up.
Okay, great. So that will be in terms of what our next steps are going to be, we'll be in contact with you that way, or you can reach out to us next week and we can let you know if there's any new information that way as well.
Okay, so my last thing is this, is that we don't want to keep on prolonging this and wasting time. As we understand, the Super Bowl is coming around. We have a full proposal package for that, along with this outline, along with a full business plan, along with $1 million signed intent letter and an escrow account, ready to move forward with the city. But we want to know if the city is serious, because if not, we can go somewhere else. Thank you.
I was born and raised in Fillmore. And me, like so many of the majority of people in who are passionate about this, who showed up for this, are disgusted that we have to fight for one last thing, one little hope that we can have for us, because this is a staple of signifies the complete gentrification of the Fillmore with this YOSHI'S building. This is our last little glimmer. I wanted to refer to your PowerPoint where you presented what we've heard, and one of the things you heard was the importance of this building to the Fillmore community and the African American community, but yet nothing that you've heard is mentioned in the selection process. So we want to know just if it was heard, is it going to be part of the process?
So again, everything that people have said at these meetings in terms of what values they want on the table when people are considering proposals for the best activation of the site, of the building. We're going to be asking everyone again, here is what the community said at these meetings about what the values are they want driving this process. And how are you, as committee members of the community, going to be weighing all of these pieces out when you're making your determination? Absolutely 100%.
And that's the word that's killing me, is the word community. What do you consider community? The now gentrified people? The people who claim 6 years and have privilege here now?
I'm glad you're asking. I'm glad you're asking. People who have lived here for a long time, people who have been involved in the community for, I think we all know what exactly that means. People who have a rich history, personally, through their investments, through their time, through their families, in terms of understanding what this community has meant to people in time. And I think that is going to be the process and the high-level considerations we're making about who defines community. Absolutely, that people who have lived here for a long time are going to be considered to sit on this review panel.
And my final question, who's going to choose the committee?
So the city partners are going to be in conversation with the supervisor's office in terms of selecting the panel and making sure that it's going to be an acceptable group to best represent the diverse interests of the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Of course.
I want to thank you guys for coming to West Bay. I want to welcome everybody here. We're always glad to open up a space for community meetings like this so we can come together and talk and get an understanding about what things are going on. What I'm concerned about is not necessarily just this particular parcel. I'm concerned with Fillmore from McAllister all the way down to Gary. A couple things concern me. A, we have lack of consistency with our publicity with various banners. Banners are kind of hanging all over the place. There's poor lighting. We don't have a bank from Fillmore to Gary on the street, and bank means business. And there's no bank on our corridor. That's concerning to me. The fact that we don't have property owners here who make significant strides to bring down our community, like the Fillmore Center, Safeway, Kentucky Fried Chicken, McDonald's, these persons who have major economic viability and take a lot of money from our community, they're not at these meetings. And that is very concerning to me. And I would hope that it'd be concerning to the community, because we can have all these conversations, but if we don't have these other players in the meeting, then it really does no value as we move forward. I think it's also concerning to me, as well as not just having a bank, but also that we're just not seeing any activity on the corridor at night or in the daytime. I walk down Fillmore and 1300 is empty. And you walk down and the former place that used to be the tea place where Brenda's was gonna come, it's empty. The left side, okay, we do okay with Bruno's, it's kind of okay sometimes. But it just seems to me that the businesses on both sides are suffering from a lack of foot traffic. And it seems to me that in this interim period, I'm hoping, Joaquin, as the director, that we can figure out a way to stimulate some foot traffic along our corridor. Because what I'm seeing in the film in San Francisco is every other corridor is being very much stimulated. The Mission, the Visadero, the Haight, North Beach, the Marina, you have activity going on all the time. This is the only community where it's just destitute. And it looks almost like a funeral procession when you go through here. And I walk these streets every day. And so I think it's concerning. You have no type of daytime, businesses open. We thank God that Black Bark is coming, we hope. But that's pretty much the only thing that's on the daytime. So how can we have daytime sort of restaurants where people could come and have lunch in the community. There's no retail between Fillmore, again, and Gary. The only retail you have is in the Cito Plaza, and that's some sort of, I don't know, come on, not everybody's gonna, I think we have to just really think about it. Every other community has viable things in it, and that concerns me as being a person who's been here since 1996. No retail, no banking, no foot traffic, and I don't care what you try to bring in there. If we don't have those things, how are we going to attract anybody?
The process is, we're saying that what you did in the past, it's not going to work, okay? And you know, I've been kind of quiet. But if you think you're going to come in our community and do the same thing you did the last 10, 20 years, you're wrong. So it's going to be a new process, a new era, and we have no time for errors. So you go back and tell Ed Lee, he need to sit down and talk to me. My name is Ace, and I'm on this case. All right.
And thank you everyone for coming out tonight. Please do stay in contact with us, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.